I think the struggle in what I do is the struggle of trying to impose analytical or intellectual order on human events, trying to understand them. That's I think the struggle for any commentator, which is to say, we need to talk in terms of patterns and understandable motives and predictable behavior, and yet a nation, like individuals, to some degree has depths that are unknowable. You can't truly understand. And so I think the struggle for me is to do my best to try to understand why America behaves the way it does, but to recognize that to some degree, as with all human behavior, there are things that are just inexplicable. It's not like being in a lab and looking at test tubes. That human beings and even nations have motivations that are that lie deep below the surface and that are not fully cannot be fully understood in a kind of rational way. It was a somewhat intimidating experience. I think it was made a little bit easier by the fact that the magazine had young editors before, one of whom, Andrew Sullivan, I had worked under, and another one, Michael Kinsley, I knew a bit. So I had they were remarkably talented people. I certainly wasn't sure that I was as talented as them, but I had seen them go through it, and I had worked at the magazine under a few different editors, so I had watched the process, so I knew the publication well. And I figured that the best thing I could do was not to worry about what age I was, but simply to do the best job that I could and kind of let things fall where they fell. Well, liberalism is the tradition with which I've always identified myself, and I think that I was particularly troubled by the inability of John Kerry in 2004 and liberals and Democrats more generally to respond to George W. Bush's vision that he laid out of America's role in the post-9/11 world in a way that seemed to me coherent and compelling. And I wanted to explore that, since I felt that while I disagreed with the narrative that Bush and conservatives had laid out, I admired its coherence, and I admired the degree to which it was rooted in a conservative tradition of which conservatives, I think, were fairly self-aware. And I didn't feel that there was that same sense of awareness of liberalism's intellectual traditions, and I wanted to think about our traditions and try to think about how you might bring them to bear today.